There's bad luck, and then there is bad luck. Luck so bad it borders on the riotous. Luck so bad it throws convulsive laughter. Luck so bad that words and language fail us and the breath escapes our bodies noisily and unordered. Luck that bad doesn't come around often. Harvey Dickerson would have said that when it did, you just got to sit back and appreciate it on its merits. In the end, when Harvey met his own piece of this dark luck, he didn't have time to sit back, appreciate, or anything. He lost consciousness very quickly and bled to death on the hot pavement in front of Michael Olive's childhood home. There on County Route 1012, which links the dunes of the Carolina beach to a green forest stuck in the red clay soil, motorists slowed and crossed themselves as they went inching past the mess. Route 1012 was a country road, and drivers were used to seeing ugly wrecks or the occasional carcass of a deer or a dog, but this was something else. Even the emergency road crew was amazed by the shards of charred mailbox, the pieces of teeth and skin, the jagged splinters of the car and Harvey's skull, and a baseball bat thrown across the summer blacktop. Debris had settled into the ditches and fallen on both sides of the dotted yellow line. The state workers cleaned up as quickly as they could, grumbling in the August heat, shaking their heads at one another. There was a witness. Zebulon Huff told first the authorities and later his fellow diners at Eddie's Bar and Q that he'd seen the whole damn thing from pit to patter. Eddie's was crowded and quiet. Thick clouds of smoke spiraled into the ceiling fans as Zeb held court. With a full mouth, he explained that yes, the mailbox had burst into flames, but no, there were no signs of the occult involved. No truth to the rumor of the Olive's address as P.O. Box 666. 666 my ass, the mailman said. The only devils involved was alcohol, my friends. Alcohol and the crazy son of a bitch who sent a bomb to the Olives through the U.S. mail. He nodded and watched the news work its way across the room. Alcohol, son of a bitch, and the worst luck a boy ever had. His audience agreed, and Harvey Dickerson would have agreed too. It was three evil things that blew the fuck out of me, the dead boy would have said. Zeb was the last one to see Harvey alive. The dead boy had been in front of him riding shotgun in Ox's white Pinto, Ox driving, both of them careless, cheerful, drunk. They sang as they slalomed the afternoon road, Harvey singing lead, Ox filling in on the choruses, both not noticing the angry mailman behind them in his aging Jeep, and all Zeb could do was watch and honk as the Dickerson boy leaned out the window and shouldered a time-brown 36-inch Louisville Slugger. Harvey had a decent swing, and the mailboxes buckled and tore and buckled and tore and dropped. Where am I? What happened?
Drink.
I know, right? Just buckled and tore and buckled and tore. They passed the Hunts and the Tates. They hit the curve where the Olive's best land came into sight, and the car spit up dust as the right rear slipped into the ditch for a small wild moment. The Pinto turned sideways, and for the length of a second, Harvey and Ox found themselves looking straight out over the Olive's acre after acre of tobacco. They saw the spent yellow fields, the dry and crumbling tractor treads, and they saw someone out there too. It was a woman, pretty and young and Mexican, a migrant, wearing a black dress, standing very still as she watched them slide by. They watched her back until the wheel straightened out and the Pinto clawed its way back on the road. Harvey turned back to see her again, but she was gone. You know that was Mike's girlfriend, Harvey said. Had to be. They accelerated down the straightaway, and soon the Olive's white farmhouse was rising up off the curve of the earth in front of them. Harvey punched Ox lightly on the shoulder, grabbed the bat, and put himself out the window one more time. God damn, Harvey said, shaking his head. There goes Dickerson again, with a moonshot over the center field wall, and Ox grunted in a low ha 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 as his buddy cranked back the bat and the Pinto blossomed into summer pyrotechnics in front of Clayton Olive's farm. Well, Zeb said late that night, If the good Lord meant me to save those boys, I suppose he would have given mail jeeps fuel injection. Down at the end of the bar at Eddie's, the words were interpreted as malice by Harvey's cousin, who took 4 steps and slammed the postman's head against the bar top twice. By the time the rhubarb was over, people said the invisible insurance men back in Raleigh would cover the material damages, but for the Chevys and Fords driving slowly by, it was a sad sight. Familiar Eddies in ruin, battered friends and brothers off for a night in the lockup. As a regular from Eddie's said, the night I spend behind bars instead of in one of them, you know there's something afoot. There were no spaces to be had in the parking lot at Jackson County Hospital, where Ox Bowman lay in intensive care. The hospital waiting room was a wash of denim and sun-red outdoor skin shifting against the septic white. Standing room only. The amoebic mass of people slid and subdivided into huddles, whispering circles, separating, recombining. On the side of the room, nearest the door, Harvey's father, Brack, stood quietly with his wife, 3 surviving children, his brother Blue, some in-laws, his cousins, nephews, nieces, and friends. Although there were plenty of people who thought poorly of the Dickersons as a clan, a steady vein of neighbors and countrymen descended to file past the unlucky parents, paying their respects. They stood before Brackford Dickerson. They took his hand in theirs, and they told him they were sorry. Sorry can suck my dick, Brack muttered once, unconvinced by somebody's profession of sympathy. By sorry, maybe he meant fate. Maybe he meant bad luck. Maybe it was his way of coming to terms with the inexplicable. Maybe his way of putting a challenge to destiny to come up with a reason why. He swore and looked past the people around him, and his cheek bulged as he stared at Mike Olive. Mike stood on the far side of the room from the Dickersons, leaning carefully against the wall, wearing bright, clean jeans and a soft, white button-down shirt, loosely tucked. His hair was growing out medium long, slipping down toward his eyes, blonde fringes almost white from the summer sun. Twice he started across the room to pay his respects, but he caught Beatty eyeing him and made sure to look away. He examined the iron stain on an old water fountain and thought about Harvey. It seemed to Mike that a mix-up had taken place in the order of things. The sins of a family shouldn't be visited on the head of one son. Even the young dead Harvey probably would have agreed with Michael this once. I might not be the best of all Samaritans, Harvey would have said, but for fact, they don't make sons of bitches like my daddy anymore. Mike stayed on the wall. Silence was expected of him. He knew that. There were people in that room who thought this was all his fault. He'd never wanted the summer to end in violence, although there was no question that he'd come back to town with the outsiders to stir things up. Oh, I'd say more than stir, said Eddie of Eddie's. He and his friends brought this county to a boil. A boil, Eddie said. A boil turns water to steam, liquid to gas. A boil, you see, messes up the very nature of the way things are. As the night began on the day that Harvey died, Jackson County started to retreat into its small and separate worlds. The Bowmans sat in stasis at the hospital, praying for their son. Zeb held court at the bar and queue. Carl and Eddie fought. The outsiders read or wrote or whispered in their rooms, while down the road, Mike ate dinner with his parents in silence. Brack Dickerson drank bourbon with his brother Blue on Blue's porch, staring at the empty chair where Harvey should be. Throughout Jackson County, people found their places and stayed there, but Harvey was everywhere that night. He hung over the pumps at the stop and go. He passed along the houses in town, over subdued dinner tables, through quiet city rooms, and then wandered out past the limits, across his father's field, and then his uncle's. He drifted over the blackened patch of asphalt in front of the Olive's house and waited, late, until Mike left his parents' house. Then Harvey followed. He followed Mike on the short drive back to where the outsiders were staying, where Mike parked, got out of a car, stood for a long moment. Then the two of them, Mike and dead Harvey, crossed the still warm blacktop of County Route 1012, down and up the ditch into the Olive's tobacco fields. The wide leaves clung at Mike's cotton knees and rocked in his wake as he faded into the dark. In the center of that field, Mike sat down in the onyx all around him. He closed his eyes, head tilted as if he were listening, and when he rose, his knees were damp. He walked down the rows until he reached a thin serpentine road that swept in a long parabola through vast plots of green peppers, cucumbers, sweet potatoes. The road tilted down towards the slant of a hill, and there was no sign of anything else there until a breeze stirred the dry, parched leaves, and with them there were white cotton clothes on a swaying line, strung between a tree and the trailers. In an ember glow, a man smoked a cigarette in a doorway, and while the ash fell, Mike saw the shadows moving in the backlit trailers. He heard women talking and children crying. Somewhere, a man called out, "Híjole," and another man laughed, and an ageless woman in an ageless dress watched Mike from the trailer steps. He smelled roasting coffee and eggs. He closed his eyes and breathed until he felt someone take his hand and say his name. Her accent sounded stronger in the dark. He stepped towards her. He could feel the heat coming off her smooth, dark skin through the thin black summer dress. He put his arms around her, and she held him as his body began to shake. Then she said his name again and pulled him into the void, stepping past the pile of trash, the charred remains of a rock-ringed fire, sitting stumps laid out in a semicircle. A trailer door opened, and the light winked brightly once into the clearing, and then it closed, and Mike disappeared. Thanks.